For today's meeting, I put together workshops that were related to the space of the village, let's say, how it was interpreted from from the artists that were there.
Yes.
Anastasia?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you again, all of you. Unfortunately, and I'm sorry for that, I have not prepared any presentation, so I will not share my screen, but I will describe you as well as I can the idea around echoes of footsteps, which was my third workshop being presented in Prespa. I will start by saying that presentation took place in Psarades as my previous workshops, and I will start by saying that Echoes of Footsteps was a workshop that tried to engage walking as a choreographed demonstration by embodying personal and collective narratives of protest, belonging, and transformation. So, in order to do that, what I used again as a third time in Psarades was walking scores, collective walking scores, and also collective by saying that we at some parts of the workshop we try to move together and work together, and also individual scores. So the workshop started in the place where the lake is located at the dock. So we gathered there, and we start with a warm up, individually and also collectively. So first we started with an individual improvisation exercise, trying to raise our weight awareness, shifting the weight from one leg to the other, to feel and sense the center of our bodies, and becoming somehow with some gestures and movements as dancing. And later on, we shift into group improvisation by turning to someone nearby and without talking. And this is something that I wanted to work on, to walk and reflect with no words, but mostly with the body itself. So in the group improvisation that we did, we began with a silent conversation as couples, with gestures and movements, trying to respond to one another, and also through breathing, feeling the breath of the other person, and so on. So after doing this small warm up, we began our walk in silence, and we try to pay attention to the soles of our feet, sensing the temperature of that day, the texture, and the weight of each step. So what we tried to do was to imagine each step as both forward in space and downward through time, trying to touch personal, historical, and political ground beneath our feet. First, and one thing I want to say is that the workshop was divided in 4 walking scores, and every walking score took place in 4 different locations. So we started with our walk from where the lake was, and we started walking towards the center of Psarades, and the text goes like this: what does it mean to stop? What happens in the moment where we choose not to move? Not because we are stuck or afraid, but because we decide not to. So the first score was called Don't Move Yet. And it invited people, it invited participants into the political and poetic power of stillness. We often think of resistance as loud, as fast, as urgent, but some of the most powerful acts of resistance in history have been quiet, unmoving, in waiting. So, in refusing to go along with what is expected. In 2013, during the protests in Turkey, a man stood still in Taksim Square for hours, and he was alone, he was silent and unmoving. He became known as the Duran Adam, the standing man. So that image of a single human body resisting with presence, not action, spread across the world. And the first score was inspired by that. In a world that demands speed, that wants us to keep going, to produce, to react, what happens when we stand still? When do we become visible? When does our refusal to move become a statement? And this is not about passivity, it's about reclaiming space through deliberate non-movement. It's about waiting as an act of defiance, resisting urgency, resisting the pressure to act before we are ready. So at that moment, I invited the participants to think of their bodies not as doing nothing, but as holding space, as reclaiming, I am here. So the first score, the Don't Move Yet score, acted as a stealing protests. I invited the participants to stand still, facing a chosen direction, and wait there as long as it feels necessary, as long as their stillness becomes visible. So I thought of establishing political stillness as action, and the inspiration behind that was again what this person in 2013 did in Turkey by standing still as a form of protests. So after that, after this walking score that participants and me performed, we continue our walking with the second score, the second walking score, with the name Gesture of Surrender. So in the second score, we shifted from stillness to gesture, from pausing to moving into intention. So when we hear the score, Gesture of Surrender, when we hear that word, surrender, we might think of giving up, of letting go, but surrender can also mean trust. It can mean openness, it can mean exposure or vulnerability. And in certain contexts, especially in protest, it becomes an incredible, powerful form of resistance. So I invited again participants to imagine this word surrendered by raising their arms. Raising arms, it's an universal gesture. Sometimes it is a sign of peace, sometimes it's a sign of fear, sometimes it's a sign of protests. So this score invited us to walk with that gesture, raising our arms, not in defeat, but in embodied awareness. What does it feel like to walk with your arms raised, to carry your own vulnerability in a public space, to be seen not for what you say, but for how you move through the world? And this is about reclaiming a gesture that is often associated with powerlessness and turning it into something deliberate, poetic, and alive. So as we walked, as we continue our walking we raised our arms in a way that felt honest to each other. It could be something strong, something soft, something shaking, flowing. There was no correct form to perform it. So we walked, imagining this gesture of walking arms as a migration, as a protest, as a journey. And later on, we found our third spot in Psarades with a different score this time, with the name of it being I Walk Because. So the introductory text for the third score was, up to now we've been walking mostly in silence, listening, sensing, absorbing. But this next score, I Walk Because, invites you to speak not with your voice, not with your body, your movement, but with a small mark on the earth. This is a moment to connect our steps to why we walk. Around the world, people walk for many reasons: to protest, to mourn, to flee, to survive, to claim space, to search for freedom, to find belonging. Some walks are chosen, some are forced, some are sacred. So, here in that moment, I ask, why do we walk? So what we did is that I gave participants a chalk, and with this chalk, they what they had to do was to write down on earth or in every surface they could find a personal statement that began with the sentence "I walk because." So I said that let the sentence come from your body, your story, your memory, your imagination. It can be something political, it can be poetic, it can be painful, it can be hopeful, but let it be yours. This moment turns your body into a witness and your writing into a trace, a quiet, visible footprint of meaning. And with every message you leave behind, you create a temporary archive of movement, memory, and meaning. So I Walk Because became a personal declaration and a shared choreography of resistance, visibility, and care.
Anastasia, one more minute, okay?
Sure. The last score was the title of it was Echo Bodies or Collective Pulse. And what we did is that we tried to move together this time, not separately, but as a crowd, sharing breathing, sharing our senses, and trying to demonstrate a feeling of the group. In a protest, there is a pulse, a shared heartbeat. In a ritual, there is a rhythm. But in that moment, I ask people to find that rhythm with someone else. Maybe you echo your participants' steps. Maybe you reflect their breath. Maybe your gestures start to align. And eventually try to become a collective body, moving in attunement. So we try to find a collective pulse to echo our bodies or let our bodies echo with one another. And lastly, it was our time to reflect all these movements, gestures, and what echoes are still vibrating with each other and with one another. And that was it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anastasia.
Yes,
Perfect.
great. Okay. Setting the scene. It is a very hot early afternoon in Psarades. I'm staying in Agios Germanos, so it took some organizational magic for me to make sure I arrive on time for my own walk. I'm a stranger here. It is my first time in Greece, first time in Prespes. I have been exploring the place through footsteps, conversations with strangers, finding ways to move around by the almighty WhatsApp group, and walking with the stars lighting the way in the dark as the coldness of the night settles and makes it more walkable for me. To be honest, I wouldn't be out walking right now when it is still so hot and the sun is high. But here we are, me and those who chose to join the walk I proposed, walking as home finding. It only happens because you, the co-walkers, join me on that day and decide to walk and explore together, so I'm grateful to each of you. The invitation to explore walking as home finding comes from my personal experience of migration to the UK to rejoin my family, which immigrated there in the 90s following the fall of the Soviet Union. As I was only 2 years old, I was left in the safety of a warm home with my grandparents in Moscow, and only followed my parents when I finished school at the age of 16. Suddenly home was no longer a nice cozy place to come back to at the end of the day, but the endless survival cycle of London's unaffordable housing where I would only want to come back home to sleep and then head out as soon as I woke up. Suddenly it was the streets, the public spaces, the free museums, the empty university rooms that became more of a place to hang out and to feel at home. This is how my journey started, of finding that it is in transition, on the move, in between places, walking the streets, knowing your secret desire lines, that home could be situated, not necessarily in the actual physical structure of the house. There is a lot of literature that in recent years has questioned the idea of home as a confined built environment and pushed it into the field of a place, acknowledging the home has much more porous boundaries. I would invite us to take it even further and consider walking home, being on the move, walking between places, leaving to return or leaving to not be able to return, as a potential moment and space where home finding and being at home can occur. But now back to Psarades. 1. Make a map of a walk home you remember really well. As the arrival exercise, I invited participants of the walk to actually sit down and make a map of a walk home that they remember really well, the one that comes to their mind first. Maybe a walk they are currently often taking from work to home, or from the nearest shop to home, or the one they used to take from school to home in their childhood. It could be the walk that they used to take home so often they remember it really well, or a walk that they only took sometimes while they lived somewhere, but that really stayed with them. It was for them to choose. As they made the map, I invited to be free with how the map looks. It could be a text, or it could be a drawing. It could have things they remembered or noticed on the walk. It could have just the feelings of how the walk felt, made with colors and shapes. It could be what they talked about when they walked it with someone. We then shared those in pairs. For me, walking and counter mapping always walk together, mapping almost acting as a way to capture, to freeze and reveal the relationships we have with the place. It is also often the first exercise I do when I lead workshops, as a way to arrive, to settle on the page in one's memory, and to activate one's relationship with places and how we perceive and remember them. 2. In pairs, one of you becomes a human camera. Take up to 10 shots. We then moved on to start walking from WALC hub down to the village center along the main road. I invited us to walk in silence, thinking about the walks home we mapped and talked about, and to follow one's own footsteps. Think of the footsteps you already made today before you even arrived here, and walk with them in silence. As we arrived, I invited people to pair up and play a human camera score. One of you closes their eyes and becomes a human camera. The other one, a camera operator, who takes a camera slowly and carefully around, can move its head, lens, and once they found a perfect position, press onto their shoulders so the camera opens and closes their eyes to make a shot. It is hard to explain, but easy to demonstrate and do. I invited everyone to take about 10 photos and then swap roles. This exercise for me activates different sort of walking in pairs where one takes care of the other and guides the walking. It also allows us to share the different ways we see the same environment and what we decide to take a photo of, what we consider worthy of attention, what we choose to share and capture, to hold on, to keep hold of. It is also an embodied way to get to know each other in the space and make bonds with either people you know already and came together with, or strangers who you just met on the walk today. 3. Where in this place feels like you belong, put a sticky note there. You can write on it or modify it as you wish. We then take each other on a walk around those places. We then go up into the square in front of the old school. I invite everyone to take a sticky note and take some time to find and really consider the place in the square where they feel like they belong, which invites them, where they feel most comfortable, where they lean towards, and where it feels that they have arrived today. They can do whatever they want to the sticky note, write on it, fold it, etc. But the sticky note is there to represent them, stand for them. Once everyone decides where to situate themselves, we go around visiting each other's places of belonging and having a short discussion why they chose the specific place. This score for me is about what makes us feel that we belong. How do we choose places that feel good and safe and comfortable and welcoming? How do we situate ourselves in a new place? How do we find where it feels at least a bit more homely in an unfamiliar environment? What is our own personal psychogeography of this place, and how can we co-inhabit this space once we learn about all of each other's desires and feelings of where we each want to position ourselves? especially as all of us in the group were guests in Psarades and not locals. And I quote from Sarah Ahmed: "The home as skin suggests the boundary between self and home is permeable, but also that the boundary between home and away is permeable as well. Here, movement away is also movement within the constitution of home as such. That is, movement away is always effective. It affects how homely one might feel or fail to feel." 4. Write a letter home. You can choose what that means for you. Put address on the envelope and seal it. In the final part of the walking session, I invited everyone to take an envelope and some paper and have individual time walking around in the square and writing a letter home. Everyone could choose where they write to. They could write to their own address or to someone they miss who feels like home for them, or to some home they no longer live in, or an imagined address that doesn't exist. Anywhere that they choose to address as a letter home. This was a way for me to gather all the explorations we had together as a group, walking, exploring belonging and home finding in this location that none of us come from, together and with our own bodies. And now there was time to have a moment to reflect, to extend to all those other places and homes one carries inside as one walks in a new place. Thinking through local and immediate and embodied into the transnational, the political, the shared. I then collected the letters and promised to send them to the addresses they provided on the envelope several months later. I hope that all the letters have reached their addressee. The nature of walking is often so immediate and ephemeral, and that's what I like about it. Yet I also like to find ways to stay in touch a bit longer, to be accountable for each other in some new way, to walk together even if far away. And I quote again from Sarah Ahmed's: "The stories of dislocation help to relocate. They give a shape, a contour, a skin to the past itself. The past becomes presentable through a history of lost homes and housings, as a history which hesitates between the particular and the general, and between the local and transnational. The telling of stories is bound up with, touched by, the forming of new communities. Memory is a collective act which produces the object, the we, rather than reflects on it. I thank the streets and squares of Psarades, every participant who joined the walk, the entire WALC team, and of course my walking peer and also currently PhD supervisor Claire Coleman, for making this walk happen and those footsteps shared together. Thank you."
Thank you, Alisa. Welcome, Vangelis. Vangelis is, as we said, from the area. We want to bring even more people from there so that we can learn from them and the way they perceive the place, the way they understand it, and the way they introduce places that are important for them, and possibly try to make artworks related to areas like that.
Είμαι ο Βαγγέλης ο Καραγιάννης, είμαι από το 1999 στο Δήμο Πρεσπών.
1999.
Yes.
1999. And over here, what is the trail that we see, Vangelis? Αυτό που βλέπουμε από πού είναι?
Εξαιτίας ακριβώς της ειδικότητάς μου που είμαι μηχανικός και το ότι δουλεύω στο Δήμο Πρεσπών, υποχρεωτικά θα έλεγα επισκεφτόμουν διάφορες περιοχές του Δήμου Πρεσπών για ανάγκες, προβλήματα και έργα κυρίως που φτιάχναμε.
So because he is part of the municipality as an engineer, it was one of his duties to visit various areas for different works, not necessarily related to trails, but he was meeting all the trails. Δεν ήταν αναγκαστικά, Βαγγέλη, για μονοπάτια, αλλά τα έβλεπε μπροστά στα καλντερίμια και αυτά. Αυτά είναι, these are only some of the ones that exist in the area.
Και προφανώς μου εμφανίστηκαν κιόλας στις περιοδίες αυτές που έκανα στην περιοχή των Πρεσπών.
And they were revealed to me as soon as when I was doing my work in the area of Prespes. Για πες μας για την πρώτη εικόνα λοιπόν, the first image.
Επέλεξα κάποιες που μπορούσα και πιο εύκολα να τις αναδείξω και να πω και κάποια στοιχεία που ξέρω για αυτές.
So now there are some photos that he can have a narration about them. Για πες μας λίγο εδώ, για αυτή.
Ωραία. Αυτό ήταν ένα από τα πιο χαρακτηριστικά μονοπάτια με ξηρολιθιά που βρήκα στην περιοχή και με είχε εντυπωσιάσει γιατί πάντα το έβλεπα από μακριά. Τώρα εξαιτίας και της δικιάς μας συνεργασίας, αν μπορώ να το πω, πήγα και από κοντά και το είδα ακόμα καλύτερα.
Τώρα, όλες αυτές οι φωτογραφίες είναι το ίδιο μονοπάτι.
Ναι, ναι, ναι.
All these photos, they represent one trail, which is in which area, σε ποια περιοχή είναι.
Ξεκινάει στην ουσία αυτό το μονοπάτι που προφανώς έχει χαλαστεί και πιο κάτω, αλλά εκεί που το βρήκα και ξεκινάει είναι δίπλα ακριβώς στην παλιά εθνική οδό. Είναι η πρώτη η φωτογραφία με το stop, αν προσέξετε, η δεύτερη φωτογραφία νομίζω. Είναι η αρχή του μονοπατιού, που τουλάχιστον του εμφανή μονοπατιού. Είναι αυτή με τα σκυλιά η φωτογραφία.
Όταν λες εθνική οδός.
Η παλιά εθνική οδός είναι παράλληλη με τη σημερινή που είναι ασφάλτινη. Αυτή είναι στη Καλιθέα. Αυτά που δείχνεις. Είναι η δεύτερη διαδρομή, είναι της Καλιθέας.
So this is in the area of Kalithea. It is the former, as he calls it, National Road, Vangelis is calling it. And
Near to...
So you can see how it works and how it is being revealed gradually in the landscape, at the same time being absorbed and being present. It was created from the way the various pieces of land were formed. So sometimes. So this is one of the reasons why we invite people like Vangelis who have been in the area, who know the area very well, and who can give us possibilities for workshops and places that we can get introduced now and possibly use them in 2027, let's say. Σε ευχαριστούμε λοιπόν, Βαγγέλη. Δεν ξέρω αν έχεις κάτι άλλο να προσθέσεις καταρχάς.
Απλά για το συγκεκριμένο μονοπάτι εγώ το συνδύασα ότι προφανώς είναι ίσως ένας δρόμος σύνδεσης της Καλιθέας με τον παλιό δρόμο, την παλιά εθνική που ανέφερα πριν. Ίσως και γι' αυτό γυτνιάζουν κιόλας. Αλλά είναι και αυτό το ενδιαφέρον που σου είχα πει με το κάστρο που υπάρχει πάνω από την Καλιθέα. Μήπως είναι κάποιο πιο παλιό μονοπάτι.
So the Evangelist is saying that the one approach is that there is this village and there is the main road, and it was connecting the village to the main road, to the main public road. However, he has another also proposal, let's say, that we will see it the following months, that above this village there is an ancient Byzantine castle. So it could be that this was a part of the road that was connecting the castle, which is not, it is in total ruins now, to the village and then to the other road system in the area.
Πηγαίνοντας στην τρίτη διαδρομή, που δεν έχουμε φωτογραφίες, γιατί προσπάθησα αυτή την περίοδο να βγάλω, αλλά έχει πάρα πολύ χιόνι, οπότε δεν είχε νόημα να βγάλω κάτι συγκεκριμένο. Για την τρίτη διαδρομή μιλάω, Γιάννη.
Ναι.
Είναι αρκετά πολύ μεγάλη διαδρομή, στην οποία τμηματικά εμφανίζεται αυτός ο δρόμος με τις ξηρολιθιές δεξιά και αριστερά, ασχέτως των χωραφιών που ανέφερα πριν περί οριοθετήσεων. Φαίνεται ότι πραγματικά η ξηρολιθιά φτιάχτηκε για να οριοθετήσει το δρόμο. Για να το προστατεύσει ίσως και από νερά βρόχινα ή ακόμα και να τον οριοθετήσει σε μια περιοχή που δεν θα μπορούσες διαφορετικά να καταλάβεις ότι είναι δρόμος αν δεν γινόταν αυτή η ξηρολιθιά. Και μιλάω για το δρόμο από το Περβάλι, τα γνωστά στρατιωτικά κτίρια, το φυλάκιο στο Περβάλι. Από εκεί σχεδόν ξεκινάει το συγκεκριμένο κομμάτι δρόμου και το βρίσκω μέχρι και τη Βίγλα. Σε πολλά τμήματα με εμφανή αυτές τις ξηρολιθιές δεξιά και αριστερά.
there is a dirt road that is parallel to the main street connecting Prespes to the skiing center, let's say. It was very difficult to get photographed because now there is a lot of snow. Thank God, ευτυχώς, that we have a lot of snow because there were some problems. And that's another possibility that one could go. Κάποιος δηλαδή, Βαγγέλη, μπορεί να περπατήσει από το Περβάλι μέχρι το πάνω στη Βίγλα με αυτό το δρόμο.
Έχει τμήματα τα οποία, ναι, δεν τα έχει χαλάσει ο καινούριος δρόμος. Αυτό είναι το σημαντικό. Και σε πολλά σημεία έχει τελείως διαφορετική χάραξη.
So one could follow another way of walking and not follow the asphalt road, but take the old road that in most of the areas it has been left untouched. Of course, now nature has intervened. Λοιπόν, και να ολοκληρώσουμε
και με κύριο χαρακτηριστικό, τελευταίο κύριο λαιμός δεν είναι τίποτα, και το χαρακτηριστικό του είναι ότι ακολουθούσε την πορεία του λαδοπόταμου.
Ροδοπόταμο ή λαδοπόταμο?
Λαδοπόταμο.
Okay.
Λαδοπόταμο.
And it is also important, so it is, when you see the river, Λαδοπόταμος, we have the new road, the asphalt road that goes to Florida. Most of us have gone through here. And also there is another, let's say, hidden road. That is the road that was the former road that is still there existing, but of course no one is using it. But it is something, an option that someone could use it as for a workshop.
Ο οποίος χρησιμοποιήθηκε και στο Πρώτο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο προφανώς και στο Δεύτερο. Γιατί ο συγκεκριμένος δρόμος ο ασφαλτικός, τώρα που έχουμε, έγινε μετά την δεκαετία του 70. Περίπου στο 74 με 76.
The new road was made in 1974-1977. So this means that this dirt road now was the main road connecting to Prespes to Florida.
And to Korica, of course.
And to Korica.
Because the way to Albania, okay. And η τέταρτη διαδρομή.
And the fourth trail.
Ο παλιός δρόμος σύνδεσης του λαιμού με την υπόλοιπη περιοχή. Και μάλιστα δίπλα σε ένα μικρό ρεματάκι που κάποτε ήταν συνδεδεμένο με το ρέμα της εισόδου που υπάρχει ακόμα.
So this is the road, we have all crossed this road, going to the conference center in Lemos, and right next to it, you can see it here more clearly, but here also as well, there is again a parallel road that connects Lemos to the other road system in the area. So, Vangelis has revealed another aspect of the area that I think it is very rich, and it is all these layers of trails on top of where people were walking and moving from one area to the other. Thank you very much. Athanasia, and we conclude with Athanasia. Hello, Athanasia.
Our project that Konstantinos and I performed in Prespes was titled Walking with Children Following Human and Bird Trace. Unfortunately, Konstantinos wasn't able to attend this meeting, so I'm going to present for both of us today. All right. So, this project took place in the village of Psarades in the Prespes region of Greece. It is a workshop designed to explore a crucial environmental issue, the coexistence of humans and wildlife. Our goal was to use the artistic practice of walking to foster empathy in primary school children, allowing them to observe the delicate symbiosis between nature and human activity. To understand the heart of this project, we must go back to May 2012. During the Visual March to Prespes, an annual walking art activity initiated by the first painting workshop, students then made a startling discovery. While walking, they noticed that some rocks had receded, revealing bones. It was the skeleton of a male bear that had been poisoned and died there. This moment was pivotal. It transformed the hidden tragedy into a visible narrative about the conflict between human expansion and wildlife survival. These are some pictures that had to do with the transformation from a skeleton to symbol. All the bones of the bear were collected, and on the initiative of Professor Yannis Giovas, this discovery was not left to be forgotten. The skeleton was carefully reconstructed. On the second picture, you can see Milica Ivkovic, that was the leading of this reconstruction. So today it resides in a deeply symbolic location, the traditional building of the former primary school in the village of Psarades. The bear has become more than a specimen. It is a springboard for raising awareness. Placing it in an educational setting underlines the necessity of teaching the next generations about the consequences of our actions on the environment. During the previous year, before we do this workshop in the encounters, with my students and also with students of Konstantinos School, we have made the same workshop in Psarades. So before the encounters, a lot of groups of children came and participated in this walk. So while working with children, we cannot view children not only as students but as active creators. For a child, walking is a primary way of mapping and understanding the world. They don't just observe the landscape, they engage with it through their bodies and senses. By following the bear's trace, they are performing a living narrative, turning their movement into a creative act. While walking is not just transportation, it's an aesthetic and cognitive tool. So the workshop was about to last 90 minutes. And our aim was to shift the narrative from fear or interference to empathy. So by physically moving in the landscape, children stop being passive observers and become active participants in the ecosystem. All right. The path leads from the village out into the open field and ends back at the school where the bear skeleton is kept, as I mentioned before. During the walk, the children were guided to look for traces. We asked them to compare what does a human footprint look like, what does a bear trace look like, how do these paths intersect. By following these traces, the children experienced the concept of territory and home, realizing that these mountains are a home that they share with a bear and also with wildlife. These were the first pictures that I talk about the formation of the skeleton, and then about the pictures of the walking with the group of children in Psarades on the counters and moving from school. So our goal was to keep a small group, approximately of 15 children. However, we were pleasantly surprised that more than 20 children arrived at the starting point. They weren't only primary school-age children, but also younger ones, accompanied by adults. So we have they formed a very different, a very diverse group. And despite language or age barriers, they found their own codes to communicate, walk, and create together. All right. So what we wanted is the children to immerse themselves in the silence and the sound of Prespes during the walk. And this experience does not end with the walk. The final stage of the workshop was the creation of a collective artwork. It is important to mention that for all of us, the artwork does not begin on the canvas. The walk itself is the first artwork. The children are acting as walking artists, collecting experience, rhythms, and sensory data along the path. So here are pictures that actually seeing children after the work that they started to create their own artistic work. So the children together as a group find a way to transform what they have perceived on their sensory data from the walk, and they created their own images as a group. What is like some words as a conclusion, the workshop is an attempt to heal the relationship between future generations and nature. By following the traces of the bear, we hope the children will learn to treat more lightly on the earth. This project proves that art and walking can be powerful educational tools to address major environmental issues. And I have some final images with the works that we did with my students in class after doing the walk in Psarades and returning back to the classroom. Okay, so this is the end. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Athanasia. Thank you, Kostas. Thank you very much. It was, yes, it was a very interesting thing to see how this skeleton is being used as an educational tool and the sites and the way the children incorporated and moved around in the space. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for your input. Especially thanks to all those who have presented, Aimilia, Iro, Ridha, Athanasia, Kostas, of course, Alisa, Anastasia, and looking forward to meeting you.